The deafening bang from beneath the hood of his 15-year-old Toyota Corolla was the final straw for Parker Thompson. He slammed his palm against the steering wheel, checking the time on his cracked phone screen, 7:42 a.m. School drop-off was at 8 o'clock, and he had exactly 18 minutes to get his 7-year-old daughter, Lily, to elementary school before racing to his construction job. Being late again could cost him the position he desperately needed to keep a roof over their heads. "Is the car broken again, Daddy?" Lily asked from the backseat, her small voice filled with a concern no second grader should have to feel. Parker forced a smile into the rearview mirror. "Just a little hiccup, sweetheart. We'll figure it out." He stepped out into the crisp autumn air of their modest neighborhood, popping the hood to assess the damage. One look told him everything the timing belt had finally given up. Repair costs would eat half a month's rent, money he simply didn't have. "Everything okay over there?" Called a voice from the adjacent driveway. Parker looked up to see George Winters, his 70-year-old neighbor, leaning on a cane beside his ancient Volkswagen van. "Car's dead," Parker admitted. "Need to get Lily to school, but take the van," George offered, fishing keys from his pocket and tossing them over. "Been sitting here collecting dust since my hip replacement anyway. The old girl runs, just needs a bit of coaxing sometimes." Parker caught the keys, relief washing over him. "I owe you one, George." "Nonsense. Just get that little lady to school on time." The old van coughed to life after 3 attempts, and Parker managed to deliver Lily to school with 2 minutes to spare. As he pulled into the construction site, his phone buzzed with a text from his sister offering to pick Lily up after school, a godsend given the circumstances. That evening, Parker spent hours under George's van, the least he could do to repay the favor. The vehicle needed serious work, corroded spark plugs, frayed wires, and a fuel system that belonged in a museum. But cars were the one thing Parker understood completely. Before life had thrown him curveballs, before Jenny had left them, before the medical bills, before downsizing to a job that barely covered expenses, he'd been a certified mechanic with dreams of owning his own shop. "Daddy, I made you a sandwich," Lily announced, standing beside him with a slightly lopsided peanut butter creation on a paper plate. "That looks amazing, pumpkin. Thank you." Parker wiped his hands on a rag and accepted the offering. Lily's thoughtfulness never failed to both warm his heart and remind him of how much she'd had to grow up in the past 2 years. 7 going on 37, his sister often remarked, "Are you fixing Mr. George's car because ours is broken?" She asked, settling cross-legged on the driveway beside him. "That's right. Mr. George helped us this morning, so I'm helping him back. That's how neighbors take care of each other. Like when Miss Rodriguez watches me sometimes and you fix her sink. Exactly like that." Parker ruffled her hair. "How about you go finish that reading assignment while I wrap up here?" Over the next 3 evenings, Parker devoted every spare moment to restoring George's van. The parts weren't expensive, just hard to find, and he managed to source what he needed from a junkyard across town. By Friday, the engine purred like it was 1975 again. "You've worked miracles," George marveled when Parker demonstrated the transformation. "Haven't heard her sound this good since the Reagan administration." "Happy to help. You saved us in a pinch." Parker wiped grease from his hands. "Any plans for it now that it's running?" George's eyes twinkled. "As a matter of fact, my niece Vanessa is arriving tomorrow, big-shot businesswoman from New York. Promised to pick her up at the airport, show her I'm still independent. Would have been embarrassing having to call a taxi." Parker nodded, understanding the older man's pride. "Well, she should ride smooth now, just don't floor it on the highway." "Listen, Parker," George said, his tone becoming serious. "I know things have been tough since Jenny left. If you need to borrow the van until you get your car sorted, it's yours." The offer hit Parker in the chest. His car would take weeks and hundreds of dollars to fix, money he simply didn't have after paying this month's bills. Public transportation made getting Lily to school and himself to work nearly impossible with the schedules. I couldn't impose like that, Parker started. It's not imposing if I'm offering, George countered. Besides, that van's been sitting in my driveway collecting bird droppings for months. Better to have it used than wasted. Parker reluctantly accepted, promising to continue maintenance on the vehicle in exchange. The following morning, Parker was replacing the van's ancient windshield wipers when George emerged from his house dressed in his Sunday best, a slightly outdated navy suit and polished shoes. Airport run? Parker asked. Indeed. Vanessa's plane lands at 11. Haven't seen her in almost 5 years, George said, adjusting his tie nervously. Need a hand getting there? Saturday morning traffic can be rough. George hesitated. I was rather counting on impressing her with my independence. I could just ride along, Parker suggested. In case the van acts up. First long drive since the repairs. Relief crossed the older man's face. That would be tremendous. And you could meet Vanessa, brilliant girl, runs some tech company worth millions now. Hard to believe she's the same kid who used to catch frogs in my backyard. The ride to the airport was smooth, with Parker silently monitoring the engine's performance. George filled the time with stories about his niece, her academic achievements, her rise through the corporate world, and how she'd built her fortune developing specialized software for medical research facilities. She's offered to move me closer to her a dozen times, George confided. But this neighborhood has been home for 40 years. Can't imagine leaving, even if the old house is too much for me sometimes. They arrived at the terminal 15 minutes early. George insisted they both wait at arrivals, and Parker agreed, having promised Lily they wouldn't pick her up from his sister's until after lunch. There she is, George suddenly announced, waving enthusiastically. Parker followed his gaze and felt his breath catch. Walking toward them was a striking woman in her mid-30s, with copper hair falling in loose waves past her shoulders. She wore a simple charcoal blazer over a white blouse and jeans, casual, but undeniably expensive. Unlike the polished business tycoon Parker had imagined, Vanessa moved with a natural warmth, her face lighting up at the sight of her uncle. "Uncle George," she exclaimed, embracing him tightly. "You look wonderful." "Vanessa Novick, you get more beautiful every time I see you," George replied, beaming with pride. "This is my neighbor, Parker Thompson. He's the reason this old man was able to pick you up himself instead of sending a car service." Vanessa turned toward Parker, extending her hand. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Parker. Any friend of Uncle George is a friend of mine." Her handshake was firm, her green eyes meeting his directly with intelligence and curiosity. Parker suddenly became acutely aware of his worn jeans and the stubborn grease stain on his faded T-shirt. "Just being neighborly," he replied, trying to sound more confident than he felt. "Your uncle helped me out of a jam earlier this week." "He has a gift for being in the right place at the right time," Vanessa smiled. "It's one of his superpowers." They collected her luggage, a single elegant suitcase and a laptop bag, and headed to the parking lot. Parker could feel Vanessa's surprise when they approached the vintage Volkswagen. "You kept the van?" she asked George, touching the faded paint with unexpected affection. "Couldn't part with it," George admitted. "Parker here brought it back from the dead this week. The man's a mechanical genius." Parker felt his neck warm at the compliment as he opened the passenger door for her. "Just basic repairs. She's a classic, built to last." "Unlike everything manufactured today," Vanessa agreed, sliding into the seat. "My first car was a hand-me-down '89 Volvo. Built like a tank, ran forever, until some teenager texting rear ended me on the freeway." The drive back was filled with easy conversation, with George proudly updating Vanessa on neighborhood news while she shared carefully edited highlights of her business ventures. Parker remained mostly quiet, occasionally adding context to George's more colorful stories about the neighborhood. "How long are you staying?" Parker finally asked as they exited the freeway. "Just the weekend," Vanessa replied, disappointment evident in her voice. Quarterly board meetings start Monday morning, but I promised Uncle George I'd visit more often. It's been too long. As they pulled into George's driveway, the van made an alarming, sputtering sound before settling back into its normal rhythm. Parker frowned. "Something wrong?" Vanessa asked, noticing his expression. "Probably just air in the fuel line," he answered. "I should check it before you drive it again, George. See?" George said to Vanessa as they unloaded her suitcase. "What would I do without good neighbors?" "I'm beginning to wonder the same thing," Vanessa smiled, her eyes lingering on Parker for a moment. Parker checked his watch. "I should get going. Need to pick up my daughter from my sister's place." "You have a daughter?" Vanessa asked, seeming genuinely interested. "Lily, she's 7 going on 17, Parker said with a proud smile. "Smart as a whip and twice as quick." "Parker's raising her on his own," George added. "Does a remarkable job of it, too." Parker shifted uncomfortably under their combined gaze. "We make it work. It was nice meeting you, Vanessa. Enjoy your visit." "Actually," George interjected, "why don't you both join us for dinner tonight?" "I've got steaks that need grilling, and I know Lily loves my backyard swing." Parker started to decline. He didn't want to intrude on their family reunion, but Vanessa spoke first. "That would be lovely," she said. "Unless you already have plans." The warmth in her voice made the invitation impossible to refuse. "No plans. Lily would love it. We'll bring dessert." Hours later, after picking up Lily and baking their contribution Lily's specialty, everything but the kitchen sink, cookies that contained chocolate chips, pretzels, and marshmallows, they returned to George's house. The aroma of grilling meat filled the backyard, and Lily immediately ran to the tire swing hanging from the massive oak tree. "Be careful, Pumpkin," Parker called reflexively. "I've got her," George assured him, abandoning his grill tongs to help Lily onto the swing. "He's wonderful with her," Vanessa observed, appearing beside Parker with 2 bottles of beer. She offered one to him. "Hope you don't mind. Uncle George mentioned you prefer this brand." Parker accepted the beer, surprised by the thoughtful detail. "Thanks, and yes, George has been great. Sometimes I think Lily comes to fix his computer just to raid his cookie jar." "The famous cookie jar," Vanessa laughed. "That thing was my weakness as a kid, too. I swear he's kept it stocked with the same butter cookies for 3 decades. They fell into easy conversation as George entertained Lily with increasingly dramatic pushing of the swing. Parker learned that Vanessa had founded her company, Nova Tech Solutions, 8 years ago after recognizing a critical gap in medical research software. What had started as a small consulting firm now employed over 200 people across 3 countries. "Enough about my boring corporate life," she said eventually. "George tells me you're a mechanic." "Used to be," Parker admitted. "Certified, owned part of a shop for a while. Construction pays the bills now." "You don't enjoy it?" Parker considered the question honestly. "It's honest work. The crew is solid, but cars make sense to me in a way that few things do. There's a logic to engines. Problems have solutions. Parts fit together a certain way. When you're done, you know exactly what you've accomplished." Vanessa nodded thoughtfully. "I understand that. It's why I still code sometimes, even though my CFO says the CEO shouldn't be wasting time on programming. There's satisfaction in building something that works exactly as it should." Dinner was served at the weathered picnic table in George's backyard. Lily charmed everyone with stories about her 2nd-grade class, particularly her detailed recounting of the class hamster's great escape. Parker watched with quiet pride as his daughter navigated adult conversation with confidence he certainly hadn't possessed at her age. "So you live in New York?" Lily asked Vanessa between bites of potato salad. "I do, in a building tall enough to see Central Park." "Does it have an elevator?" "Daddy and I got stuck in one at the mall once and the firefighters had to rescue us." "It does, and now I'm terrified of getting stuck in it," Vanessa laughed. "It's okay," Lily reassured her. "Daddy says when scary things happen, we just have to breathe deep and remember that help is coming." Vanessa's eyes met Parker's across the table. Your daddy sounds very wise. As the evening wound down and Lily's energy finally began to fade, Parker thanked George for the hospitality and began gathering their things. I need to get this one to bed, he explained, noticing Lily trying to stifle a yawn. Before you go, Vanessa said, would you mind taking a quick look at the van? That sputtering sound from earlier is worrying me, especially if Uncle George is driving it. Of course. Parker followed her to the driveway, aware of George entertaining a sleepy Lily with a story about neighborhood squirrels. I'm actually worried about more than just the van, Vanessa admitted once they were out of earshot. I hadn't realized how much Uncle George has slowed down. The house needs repairs. The yard is becoming too much for him, but he's so stubborn about staying independent. Parker nodded, understanding her concern. He's proud, doesn't want to be a burden. That's just it. He isn't a burden, he's family. She hesitated. I don't mean to pry, but George mentioned you've been helping him with odd jobs around the house. When I can. Simple stuff, fixing a leaky faucet, patching the roof, that kind of thing. Vanessa seemed to consider something carefully before speaking again. I have a proposition for you, but I don't want you to answer right away. Think about it first. I'm listening. I need someone local I can trust to look after Uncle George and help with house maintenance. I'd compensate you fairly, of course. It wouldn't be charity, I genuinely need the help, and you clearly have the skills. Parker's pride bristled slightly at what felt dangerously close to pity. I appreciate the offer, but I've got a full-time job. I understand, she said quickly. It was presumptuous of me, I just worry about him. Parker softened, recognizing the genuine concern in her voice. Look, I don't need payment to keep an eye on George. He's a good neighbor and he's been kind to Lily and me. But if you notice specific repairs the house needs, I'm happy to give you an honest assessment of what's critical and what can wait. Relief crossed her features. That would be incredibly helpful. Thank you. Before Parker could respond, his phone buzzed with a text. He checked it quickly, frowning at the message from his sister. Everything okay? Vanessa asked. My sister. She usually watches Lily after school while I finish my shift, but she just got offered extra hours at the hospital next week. I'll need to figure something out. What about the after-school program? Filled up months ago, Parker sighed. I'll make it work. Always do. They rejoined George and Lily, who was now barely keeping her eyes open. After warm goodbyes, Parker carried his drowsy daughter home, tucked her into bed, and collapsed onto his couch, mentally calculating how many sick days he had left to cover the childcare gap. Monday morning arrived with typical chaos. Lily couldn't find her library book. Parker discovered they were out of bread for lunches, and the ancient coffee maker chose that moment to give up the ghost. By the time he dropped Lily at school, library book located, lunch improvised, he was already running late for work. As he jogged toward the bus stop, a familiar Volkswagen van pulled alongside him. The window rolled down to reveal Vanessa behind the wheel. Need a ride, she called. Parker stopped, surprised. I thought you were flying back yesterday. Change of plans. Hop in. Where are you headed? Parker hesitated only briefly before climbing in. Construction site on West Maple, but aren't you missing your board meetings? Virtual attendance, she explained, pulling back into traffic. I decided Uncle George needed me here for a few more days. The house is worse than I thought. Define worse. The bathroom sink drains directly onto my shoes. The back porch has 3 boards I could push through with my finger, and I'm fairly certain there's a family of something living in the attic. Parker couldn't help smiling at her matter-of-fact delivery. Raccoons, probably. I'll take a look after my shift if you want. I was hoping you might say that, Vanessa replied, relief evident in her voice. They drove in comfortable silence for a few minutes before Parker's curiosity got the better of him. So how does the CEO of a successful tech company just decide to work remotely on a moment's notice? Privileges of being the boss, she answered with a small smile. Though my executive assistant may never forgive me, the truth is, I've been looking for an excuse to step back a bit. 80-hour weeks lose their appeal after a while, even when you love what you do. I find that hard to believe, Parker said. You seem like someone who thrives on the challenge. I do, she corrected herself. But lately I've been wondering what I'm working so hard for. The company's stable, the teams run themselves most days. Meanwhile, I've barely seen my favorite uncle in years. Parker understood the sentiment all too well. Life has a way of slipping by while we're focused on survival. Exactly, she agreed, glancing at him with newfound appreciation. They arrived at the construction site, where Parker's foreman was already distributing assignments for the day. Thanks for the ride, Parker said, reaching for the door handle. Parker, Vanessa called as he stepped out. About your childcare situation, I'm staying at Uncle George's all week. I'll be working from there. If Lily needs a place to go after school, she's welcome to join us. Parker stared at her, caught off guard by the offer. I couldn't ask you to. You didn't ask. I offered, she interrupted. Besides, I could use the company. Conference calls get tedious after the third hour. Against his better judgment, Parker found himself considering it. His sister had already confirmed she couldn't help, and calling out sick would risk his already precarious employment. She gets out at 3:15, he said finally. I'd be there to pick her up by 6 o'clock. Perfect. I'll make sure Uncle George stocks the cookie jar. That evening, after retrieving a surprisingly happy Lily from George's house, where she'd apparently spent the afternoon teaching Vanessa the fine art of rainbow loom bracelets, Parker returned, as promised, to investigate the attic situation. Vanessa met him at the door in casual clothes, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, a stark contrast to her polished airport appearance. Fair warning, she greeted him. Whatever's up there has been having what sounds like Olympic trials all day. Parker followed her through the house, noting at least a dozen repair issues that needed addressing sooner rather than later. In the hallway, she pulled down the attic access ladder. Ladies first? She suggested with a wry smile. Not a chance, Parker countered, grabbing the flashlight she offered and climbing up. The beam cut through dusty darkness, revealing the expected jumble of Christmas decorations and forgotten furniture. A rustling sound drew his attention to the far corner, where two reflective eyes blinked back at him. Definitely raccoons, he confirmed. A mother and at least 2 kits from what I can see. Can we evict them without traumatizing Lily when she finds out? Vanessa called from below. Humane trap should work. I've got one you can borrow. He descended to find Vanessa leaning against the wall, arms crossed. You've dealt with this before, I take it? Hazard of the neighborhood. Old houses, mature trees, paradise for crafty animals looking for shelter. Speaking of shelter, she said, I need your honest assessment. How bad is the house, really? Parker considered his words carefully. Structure's basically sound. It's the systems that concern me. Electrical's outdated, plumbing's a patchwork of repairs, and the roof won't make it through another winter without work. Vanessa nodded, having clearly expected this answer. And if it were your house, what would you tackle first? Roof, no question. Everything else becomes irrelevant if water's pouring in. That's what I thought. Can you recommend someone reliable? I know a few guys, Parker offered. I could get you quotes. Would you consider overseeing the work? Vanessa asked directly. I trust your judgment, and I can't stay indefinitely. I'd compensate you for your time, of course. Parker hesitated. The offer was tempting. Extra income would help tremendously with his own financial struggles, but accepting felt uncomfortably like charity. Vanessa seemed to read his thoughts. This isn't pity, Parker. It's a straightforward business arrangement. I need someone who won't take advantage of an elderly man or his niece who clearly knows nothing about construction. You need supplemental income. It's mutually beneficial. Put that way, it was difficult to argue. I'd need to work around my regular job schedule. Of course, and I've been thinking about your childcare situation too. Vanessa, hear me out, she insisted. Uncle George mentioned he gets lonely during the day. What if Lily came here after school? She could do homework, George would have company, and you wouldn't have to worry. It's not a burden, it would genuinely help him. Parker ran a hand through his hair, conflicted. It's a generous offer, but I can't expect your uncle to become a babysitter. Not a babysitter, a surrogate grandfather, Vanessa corrected. At least consider it, for his sake as much as yours. Before Parker could respond, his phone rang his sister, calling to check on Lily. He excused himself to take the call, grateful for the interruption that gave him time to process Vanessa's proposals. By the time he'd finished the call, Vanessa had moved to the kitchen, where she was attempting to repair the leaking faucet with limited success. Water sprayed in an impressive arc, soaking the front of her shirt as she fought with a wrench. "Need a hand?" Parker asked, failing to hide his amusement. "I was an engineering major," she said defensively, wiping water from her face. "This should not be defeating me." "Did you turn off the water supply first?" Her expression was answer enough. Parker reached under the sink to close the valve, immediately stopping the impromptu fountain. "In my defense," she said, wringing out her shirt, "software doesn't usually fight back quite so literally." Parker couldn't help laughing. "I don't know. I've seen Lily's tablet update and suddenly nothing works the way it did before." "Fair point." She joined his laughter, the tension of their earlier conversation dissolving. They worked side by side to fix the sink properly, with Parker guiding her through the repair rather than simply taking over. Her quick understanding and genuine interest surprised him. By the time they finished, they'd reached an unspoken agreement Parker would help with the house repairs and consider the after-school arrangement for Lily. Over the next 2 weeks, a routine developed. Lily would spend afternoons with George, often joined by Vanessa, who had extended her stay and was working remotely. Parker would arrive after his shift, sometimes staying for dinner, other times taking Lily home depending on his exhaustion level. Weekends were dedicated to more substantial repairs on George's house, with Vanessa insisting on learning alongside Parker rather than simply paying for the work. "Hand me the Phillips head," Parker requested one Saturday, halfway underneath the kitchen sink. "The star-shaped one, right?" Vanessa clarified, rummaging through the toolbox. "That's the one." He accepted the screwdriver she passed him. "You're getting better at this." "I had a good teacher," she replied, "though I'm still not sure why we're replacing this whole section when just the gasket was leaking." "Because the pipe's corroded. Fixing just the gasket would be like putting a Band-Aid on a broken leg, might hold temporarily, but we'd be back here in a month doing it all over again." "Like refactoring code instead of just patching bugs," Vanessa mused. Parker emerged from under the sink, raising an eyebrow. "I have no idea what that means, but I'm going to assume it's a compliment." "It is," she confirmed with a smile. "It means doing the job right even when the quick fix is tempting." Their eyes held for a moment longer than necessary before Parker looked away, focusing on the task at hand. These moments had been happening more frequently: shared glances, lingering conversations, the occasional brush of hands that seemed less than accidental. Parker found himself looking forward to seeing Vanessa each day, even as he reminded himself of the practical impossibility of any deeper connection. She was a successful CEO with a life in New York. He was a struggling, single father, barely keeping his head above water. "Uncle George mentioned your car is still out of commission," Vanessa said, breaking into his thoughts. "Why haven't you fixed it?" Parker tightened the final connection beneath the sink. "Parts aren't the issue, I can get those. It's finding the time between work, Lily, and now these repairs." "What if I watch Lily this Saturday? You could work on your car." "Don't you have a company to run?" Parker asked, only half joking. "I have an executive team running day-to-day operations," she countered. "The perks of building a good organization is eventually it can function without you micromanaging every detail." Parker emerged from under the sink, wiping his hands on a rag. "You're serious about this?" "Absolutely. Besides, Lily promised to teach me how to make friendship bracelets. Apparently, my rainbow loom technique still needs work." Saturday arrived with perfect weather for car repairs. Parker worked steadily through the morning, occasionally glancing over to where Lily and Vanessa sat on George's porch, heads bent together over colorful threads. The domestic scene stirred something in his chest that he'd long thought dormant, a sense of possibility, of family beyond just himself and Lily. George joined him around noon, offering a cold drink and companionable silence as Parker wrestled with the timing belt installation. "She's different around you," the older man finally said. Parker looked up. "Who?" "Vanessa. Known her whole life, and I've never seen her like this. Relaxed. Present. The job usually has her checking her phone every 3 minutes." "She's on vacation," Parker pointed out, though he'd noticed the same thing. "It's more than that." George fixed him with a knowing look. "She extended her stay twice now, board's probably having fits." Parker focused intently on the engine, avoiding George's gaze. "She's worried about you. Wants to make sure the house repairs are handled properly." "The house has been falling apart for years," George countered. "She's never stayed more than a weekend before." Before Parker could respond, Lily's excited voice called from the porch. "Daddy. Vanessa says we can make pizza for dinner, and I can put whatever toppings I want on it. Within reason," Vanessa added quickly. "We already established that gummy bears are not an appropriate pizza topping." "Betrayed by my own daughter," Parker called back with mock indignation. "Everyone knows gummy bears are the cornerstone of fine pizza cuisine." The evening evolved into an impromptu pizza party, with George contributing an unexpectedly excellent bottle of wine from his cellar. Been saving it for a special occasion. And Lily, creating increasingly experimental topping combinations under Vanessa's indulgent supervision. After Lily went to bed, Parker and Vanessa sat on his small back porch, the remnants of the wine between them. The night was clear, stars visible despite the city lights in the distance. "Car running again?" Vanessa asked, her voice soft in the darkness. "Good as new." "Well, good as a 15-year-old Corolla gets anyway." Parker swirled the wine in his glass. "Thank you for today. Lily had a blast." "So did I." Vanessa turned to face him. "She's an incredible kid, Parker. You've done an amazing job with her." "Some days I feel like I'm barely holding it together," he admitted. "After Jenny left, there were times I wasn't sure I could do this alone. But you did. You are. Out of necessity." "Out of love," she corrected gently. "There's a difference between surviving and thriving." "Lily isn't just surviving, she's confident, creative, kind. That doesn't happen by accident." Parker fell silent, unexpectedly moved by her words. "You're good with her too, you know. Most adults treat kids like they're another species." "I just remember how it felt when adults did that to me," Vanessa replied. "Like my thoughts didn't matter until I reached some magical age of importance." They lapsed into comfortable silence, the space between them on the porch swing gradually diminishing until their shoulders touched. Parker was acutely aware of her presence, the subtle scent of her shampoo, the warmth of her arm against his, the way her profile caught the soft porch light. "I have to go back to New York next week," she said suddenly. "Board's getting restless, and there are meetings I can't do virtually." The announcement shouldn't have felt like a blow. Parker had always known her stay was temporary, yet disappointment settled heavy in his chest. "The house is in much better shape now," he offered. "Roof's fixed, plumbing's updated, electrical's safer. George should be set for a while." "It's not the house I'm worried about leaving," Vanessa said quietly. Parker turned to find her looking directly at him, vulnerability clear in her expression. Before he could second-guess himself, he leaned forward, closing the distance between them. The kiss was gentle, questioning, giving her every opportunity to pull away. Instead, her hand came up to rest against his cheek, drawing him closer as she responded with unexpected intensity. When they finally broke apart, Parker rested his forehead against hers. "This is complicated," he murmured. "Most worthwhile things are," she replied. "You live in New York, your life is there. I can barely afford a weekend trip to the next state." "Those are logistics, Parker. Challenging, yes, but not insurmountable." I have Lily to consider. Of course you do, Vanessa agreed. She comes first, always. But consider this: in the 2 weeks I've been here, have I done anything to suggest I don't understand that? Parker thought about how naturally Vanessa had integrated herself into their lives, helping Lily with homework, never undermining his parental decisions, always conscious of the example she set. No, he admitted. You've been amazing with her. Then maybe we see where this goes, she suggested. I'm not asking for promises, just possibility. Parker nodded slowly, allowing hope to surface. I think I can manage possibility. The week before Vanessa's departure passed too quickly. They settled into a rhythm that felt both novel and strangely familiar: shared meals, evening walks with Lily, late conversations after his daughter went to bed. Parker found himself opening up about the struggles of the past few years: Jenny's gradual withdrawal after postpartum depression, the medical bills that had drained their savings, the painful custody discussions that had ultimately resulted in Jenny relinquishing her parental rights before moving across the country with a new partner. In turn, Vanessa shared her own complexities: the pressure of being a female CEO in a male-dominated industry, the loneliness of success without someone to share it with, her concerns about George's declining health that she couldn't address from a distance. On Vanessa's final evening in town, George insisted on hosting a farewell dinner. As they sat around his dining room table, the old man cleared his throat purposefully. I've been doing some thinking, he announced, setting down his fork. This house is too big for me now. The stairs are getting harder, the yard's a constant battle, and frankly, I'm tired of rattling around in all these empty rooms. Uncle George, Vanessa began, concern evident in her voice. If this is about the repairs, it's not about the repairs, he interrupted. It's about being practical. I found a nice one-level condo in that senior community across town, the one with the golf course and the swimming pool. Some of my buddies from the VFW already live there. Parker and Vanessa exchanged surprised glances. You hate golf, Vanessa pointed out. I hate golf courses, George corrected. Never tried the actual game, might be good at it. What about the house? Parker asked. George looked between them meaningfully. Well, that's the other thing I've been thinking about. Vanessa needs a place when she visits, which I hope will be more often now. He paused, his expression turning mischievous. And Parker, you and Lily could use more space than that rental duplex provides. The implication hung in the air, momentarily stunning both of them. I couldn't afford, Parker started. Who said anything about buying it? George waved dismissively. I'm talking about renting. Reasonable rate, of course. You'd handle maintenance, which saves me hiring someone. Lily would have a yard. Vanessa would have somewhere to stay when she visits that isn't a hotel. Seems like an elegant solution to several problems. Parker looked at Vanessa, trying to gauge her reaction. Her expression was carefully neutral, though her eyes betrayed hopeful calculation. It's certainly an interesting proposition, she said carefully, but it's a big decision for everyone involved. Think about it, George urged. No rush, the condo won't be ready for a couple of months anyway. Later that night, after George had retired and Lily was asleep in the guest room, Parker and Vanessa discussed the unexpected offer as they walked through the quiet neighborhood. He's playing matchmaker, Parker said, still processing the suggestion. Shamelessly, Vanessa agreed with a small smile, though I can't say I'm entirely opposed to his methods. It's a lot to consider, moving, long distance, whatever this is between us. Relationship, Vanessa supplied. I think we can call it that, can't we? Parker nodded, taking her hand in his. Yes, but how would it work, realistically? You'd be in New York most of the time. For now, she acknowledged, but I've been considering opening a satellite office here. The cost of operations would be significantly lower than Manhattan, and the talent pool is surprisingly strong in this region. Parker stopped walking to face her directly. You can't make business decisions based on this, on us? I'm not, she assured him. I've been exploring expansion options for over a year. Meeting you just provided additional incentive to prioritize this location. And living arrangements. George's house is convenient, but we don't have to decide everything tonight, Vanessa interrupted gently. My flight's not until tomorrow afternoon. We have time to talk options, consider what makes sense for everyone, especially Lily. The mention of his daughter brought Parker's practical concerns to the forefront. Speaking of Lily, I need to be careful about introducing relationship changes. Her mother's departure was traumatic enough. I understand completely, Vanessa assured him. We move at a pace that's healthy for her, period. Her unequivocal support eased some of Parker's anxiety. They continued walking, discussing logistics with increasing optimism as the initial shock of George's proposal faded. The airport goodbye the next day was more difficult than Parker had anticipated. Lily clung to Vanessa with surprising ferocity, extracting promises of video calls and texts. "You'll come back, right?" she asked, her small face serious. "Absolutely," Vanessa assured her. "In fact, I'll be back in just 2 weeks. That's 14 sleeps." "I'll count them on my calendar," Lily decided. When it was Parker's turn to say goodbye, words seemed inadequate. He pulled Vanessa into an embrace that communicated what he couldn't articulate, that somehow, in less than a month, she had become essential. 2 weeks, she murmured against his ear. "I'll be here," he promised. The following days felt strangely empty, despite being filled with the same activities as before work. Caring for Lily, helping George prepare for his move. Vanessa called daily, sometimes just for brief check-ins, other times for lengthy conversations that stretched late into the night after Lily was asleep. True to her word, Vanessa returned exactly 2 weeks later, this time with a more substantial suitcase and her laptop bag bulging with work documents. "Staying longer?" Parker asked as he picked her up at the airport. 3 weeks, she confirmed. "The board approved my proposal for the satellite office. I need to scout locations, meet with local officials about incentives, start the hiring process." Sounds serious. It is. It's also an excuse to be here more frequently during the setup phase. She smiled. "Which happens to align with my personal interests as well." The 3 weeks stretched into a monthly pattern: 2 weeks in New York, 2 weeks in town. During her absences, Parker and Lily moved into George's house, ostensibly to prepare it for rental, but increasingly making it their own. Lily chose the bedroom with the window seat overlooking the backyard. Parker took the guest room rather than the master, wanting to respect boundaries even as their relationship deepened. 4 months into their relationship, Vanessa's company opened its local office in a renovated warehouse downtown. The celebration dinner at George's new condo, where he had, surprisingly, taken to golf with unexpected enthusiasm, felt like a turning point. "To new beginnings," George toasted, raising his glass, "and to finally having family nearby again." "To family," Vanessa echoed, her eyes meeting Parker's across the table. Later that night, after Lily had fallen asleep watching a movie in what was now unquestionably her bedroom, Parker and Vanessa sat on the back porch swing that had become their favorite spot for serious conversations. "I've been thinking," Vanessa began, her tone purposefully casual. "With the office established here, I'll be splitting my time more evenly between locations. It would make sense to have a more permanent arrangement than living out of a suitcase in George's old room." "What did you have in mind?" Parker asked. "Well, the house has plenty of space," she ventured. Parker took her hand. "Are you asking to move in?" "In a sense," she hesitated. "But I recognize it's not just about us. There's Lily to consider. I don't want to disrupt the stability you've created for her." "You wouldn't be disrupting," Parker assured her. "You've become part of that stability." "She asks about you constantly when you're gone, saves artwork to show you, plans activities for your visits." "And you, what do you want?" The directness of her question deserved equal honesty. "I want you here," he said simply. "I've spent 2 years focusing exclusively on survival and providing for Lily. With you, I've remembered there's more to life than just getting through each day. I'm happier. Lily's happier. It feels right when you're here." Vanessa's smile illuminated her entire face. "Then let's make it official. I'll maintain the New York apartment for now. I still need to be there regularly, but this becomes home base." "There's something else we should discuss," Parker said, suddenly serious. "Living arrangements are one thing, but I need you to understand what you're potentially taking on. I'm a package deal. Lily isn't just my daughter, she's my priority always." "As she should be," Vanessa agreed. "Being a parent isn't something you can try on part-time," he continued. "If we're going to build a life together, you need to be certain this is what you want, not just me, but the responsibility that comes with being in Lily's life long-term." Vanessa considered his words carefully. "I've never seen myself as particularly maternal," she admitted. "Before meeting you and Lily, children were an abstract concept, something I might consider someday, but never with any urgency." Parker nodded, trying to hide his disappointment. "But," she continued, squeezing his hand, "loving Lily doesn't feel like an obligation or a compromise. It feels natural. I'm not trying to replace her mother, and I wouldn't presume to step into a parental role without your blessing. What I know with absolute certainty is that I want to be in both your lives, however that looks." Relief washed over Parker. That's all I needed to hear. The transition happened gradually over the next few weeks. Vanessa's clothes migrated into the master bedroom closet. Her laptop established a permanent place on the home office desk. Her preferred coffee beans appeared in the kitchen cabinet. With each small addition, the house felt more complete. Lily adapted to the changes with surprising ease, delighted by Vanessa's more consistent presence. Together they established new routines: Sunday pancake breakfasts, Wednesday movie nights, weekend science experiments that occasionally resulted in minor kitchen disasters. 6 months after Vanessa's first extended stay, Parker found himself sitting beside her on a park bench watching Lily navigate the playground with newfound confidence. The autumn air was crisp, leaves crunching underfoot as children raced between equipment. "She made it all the way across the monkey bars," Vanessa observed, pride evident in her voice. "Last week she couldn't get past the 3rd rung. She's been practicing," Parker replied, "though I suspect your pep talks have helped." Vanessa smiled, leaning against his shoulder. "She's remarkably determined when she sets her mind to something." "Like someone else I know," Parker teased, pressing a kiss to her temple. They sat in comfortable silence, watching Lily conquer one playground challenge after another. "I've been offered the chance to transition to a chairman role," Vanessa said suddenly. "Day-to-day operations would shift to our COO. I'd still be involved in strategic decisions, but the time commitment would decrease significantly." Parker turned to her, surprised. "You love running the company." "I do," she acknowledged, "but I've discovered I love other things more." Her eyes drifted meaningfully toward Lily, then back to Parker. "The company's stable, the leadership team is strong, and I'm finding that success means something different to me now than it did a year ago." "Are you sure?" "That's a significant change." "I've never been more certain of anything," she assured him. "Besides, I've been developing some ideas for a foundation focused on STEM education for girls. I'd have more time to pursue that." Parker studied her expression, finding nothing but conviction. "Then I support you completely." "There's something else," Vanessa said, reaching into her pocket. "Something I've wanted to discuss for a while now." She withdrew a small velvet box, causing Parker's breath to catch. Rather than opening it immediately, she turned fully toward him. "When I came to visit Uncle George that first time, I was completely focused on my career. The idea of a serious relationship wasn't even on my radar," she began. "Then you fixed that ridiculous van, and somehow in the process, you fixed something in me to a part I hadn't even realized was broken." She opened the box to reveal 2 simple platinum bands. "These aren't traditional engagement rings. They're a promise that whatever we build together will be based on partnership, respect, and the family we've already started creating. If you're ready, I'd like to make it official." Parker stared at the rings, momentarily speechless. When he found his voice, it was thick with emotion. You know, this means you're signing up for more broken-down vehicles, elementary school science fairs, and a lifetime of me using the wrong screwdriver for every job. I'm counting on it, she smiled. Then my answer is absolutely yes. He took her face in his hands, kissing her deeply until a familiar voice interrupted them. Daddy, Vanessa, did you see me? I went all the way across twice. They broke apart to find Lily standing before them, cheeks flushed with exertion and pride. We saw, sweetheart, Parker assured her. You were amazing. Lily, Vanessa said, her voice gentle but serious. Your dad and I have something important to ask you. Parker nodded encouragingly as Vanessa showed Lily the open ring box. These are special rings that mean we want to be a family together, officially, Vanessa explained. But we wanted to make sure you're okay with that first, because you're the most important part of our family. Lily studied the rings thoughtfully. Does this mean you'll stay forever? No more going back to New York all the time? I'll still need to visit occasionally, Vanessa admitted. But yes, it means I'll be here permanently. This would be our home, yours, your dad's, and mine, together. Lily's face broke into a radiant smile. Then yes, 1,000,000 times yes. She threw her arms around both of them. Can I be the flower girl? Emily was a flower girl at her aunt's wedding, and she got to wear a pretty dress and special shoes, Parker laughed, lifting Lily into his lap. Of course you can be the flower girl. You'll be the most important person there. As they walked home hand in hand, Lily skipping between them with excited chatter about wedding plans. Parker reflected on the unlikely journey that had brought them here from a broken-down car and a neighborly favor to a future brighter than he'd dared imagine. That evening, after Lily was asleep, Parker found Vanessa on their porch swing, contemplating the ring now adorning her finger. Second thoughts, he asked, joining her. Not one, she assured him. I was just thinking about how many things had to align for us to meet. If my flight hadn't been that weekend, if your car hadn't broken down, if you hadn't offered to fix George's van. If George hadn't been a shameless matchmaker, Parker added with a smile. The universe's most effective Cupid, Vanessa agreed. Parker pulled her close. I don't know if it was fate, or coincidence, or George's meddling. What I do know is that I'm grateful for whatever cosmic alignment brought you into our lives. You've given Lily and me something I thought was permanently out of reach, a complete family. You've given me the same, Vanessa said softly. I had success, financial security, professional respect, all the external markers of achievement, but I was missing the things that matter most. She interlaced her fingers with his. Now I have everything. As they sat together beneath the stars, Parker marveled at how a simple act of neighborly kindness had led to such profound change. From fixing a broken-down van to rebuilding a broken-down life, the journey had been unexpected and occasionally challenging, but ultimately perfect in its imperfection, much like the family they had created together. In the warm light spilling from the windows of what was now unquestionably their home, the future stretched before them, filled with school plays and science projects, quiet evenings and noisy celebrations. All the ordinary moments that, woven together, create an extraordinary life. For a man who had once measured success by merely surviving each day, Parker now found himself embracing something far more precious. The chance to truly live, love, and thrive alongside the family that had found him when he least expected it.